There are sharks that glow in the dark. For example, swell sharks. They live in the dark ocean depths, almost 1,700 feet under the surface. No one knows why exactly, but they emit a fluorescent glow only other swell sharks can see. Scientists detected the glow because they used filters that blocked out yellow light. They think that could be the way for these big fish to communicate with their buddies. This glow helps sharks fight infections on a microbial level. Cowbirds have secret passwords they use to recognize each other. They're a specific type of parasite bird since they lay their eggs in other bird species' nests. The young cowbirds have an inner mechanism where they recognize their species singing, like some sort of secret password only they know. That's how they manage to find others of their kind. A grizzly bear has an incredibly strong bite. It may look cute, but if you're close to this big guy, you better stay out of reach of its sharp claws and especially its mouth. Its bite force is more than 8 million pascals, which means it can crush a bowling ball. Some animals have skin-deep stripes, and others have more superficial ones. Tigers are in the first group. Not only is their fur striped, but their skin is as well. It's the same with some other furry big cats, like snow leopards. Giraffes and zebras are in the second group, since they have patterns only on their coats. Speaking of zebras, do you think they're black with white stripes or white with black stripes? At first, it really looks like the second option is correct. Their black stripes mostly end towards the inside of their legs and on their bellies, and the rest of it is white. But that's not true. Surprisingly, they're black with white stripes. All of their fur, both white and black, grows from follicles that have something called melanocyte cells. All animals have these cells. They produce a pigment called melanin, and it gives color to their hair and skin. When it comes to zebras, chemical messengers tell which melanocytes send pigment to which area of fur. That's why zebras have a black and white pattern. But white is not actually its own pigment. It's an absence of melanin. So, black is their default color. Koalas have fingerprints that are so close to ours that they could even taint crime scenes. It doesn't seem like they have a lot in common with humans, but take a closer look at their hands. They have distinctive loops and arches. So if any koalas want to do something illegal, it would be a good idea for them to wear gloves. Ghost crabs growl when they're around creatures they don't like or find threatening. They do it using teeth in their stomachs. First, they'll let you know they'll defend themselves if you try anything by showing you their claws. If that doesn't work, they'll go for fearsome growling noises like dogs. But the noise is coming from rubbing their 3 elongated hard teeth inside their stomach. Ghost crabs produce the same noise when they're grinding up food. Speaking of teeth, did you know narwhal tusks are actually some sort of an inside-out tooth? Unlike the majority of other whales, narwhals are the ones that come with a large tusk, or tooth that grows from the inside of their jaw. It has up to 10 million nerve endings, and they're unprotected, which means its tusk is very sensitive to any type of contact. It's almost like a piece of skin, because tusks usually don't have many nerve endings. Up to 95% of humans are right-handed, and it's the same with bottlenose dolphins. There are even more right-handed ones among them than among humans. During one study, scientists found that bottlenose dolphins turn to their left side over 99% of the time, which means they're right-handed. They place their right side and right eye closer to the ocean floor as they go for prey, such as squids, shrimps, or smaller fish. More cool facts from the ocean. Did you know humpback whales use bubbles when they go after their prey? You might think they don't need any special method considering how large they are. But when they're lurking for prey in the open waters, these whales team up and use something called a bubble net technique. While swimming in an upward spiral, they blow bubbles underwater. These bubbles make it difficult for fish to escape. The oldest evidence we have of domesticated cats dates up to 12,000 years ago. Researchers discovered this almost 20 years ago when they were digging through an ancient village in Cyprus. They found cat bones right next to human ones, which suggested they were close even when their lives came to an end. Humans were hunters, so they domesticated dogs first, somewhere up to 29,000 years ago. Dogs helped them catch other animals, but they didn't think they needed cats until they started to settle down and store surplus crops. Mice became frequent guests in grain stores, so cats came in handy in those times. Puffins are quite innovative when they want to scratch their bodies. They can surely be proud of their stunning beaks, but they obviously think it's not enough for scratching. Researchers noticed they tend to spontaneously take a small wooden stick to scratch an itchy spot. There's a special type of ant that only lives in a small part of Manhattan. The Broadway medians at the 63rd and 76th Street is the area these crawling critters decided was the best spot for them. The Manhattan ant looks like it's from Europe, but no European species can actually match it. Hey Potterheads, can you believe there's a thing like chocolate frog? Well, not quite, but it looks like it. New Guinea and Australia weren't always separated. They spent millions of years together until about 12,000 years ago, rising sea levels divided them. Since they were together for so long, some animals and plants still inhabit both areas, including green tree frogs. These frogs have spread really far and wide, and some of them, who live in hot, swampy regions surrounded by plenty of crocodiles, actually look like they're made of chocolate. We all know flamingos for their specific color, but they're not actually pink. They're born gray, and that's how they would stay if it weren't for their diet of blue-green algae and shrimp. These foods have a specific natural dye, which is why flamingo feathers turn pink over time. These little Tasmanian devils grow up and leave their moms. They socialize together, forming bonds that last for the rest of their lives. Not only them, cows also have stronger social ties than we think. They like to socialize, and they make long-lasting friendships. One research even discovered their heart rates significantly increase as a sign of stress when they're separated from their BFFs. Imagine you could simply freeze yourself solid during the cold winter days instead of listening to your teeth chatter and trying to tighten your jacket. That's what frogs can do. Aquatic frogs mostly hibernate underwater and spend most of the winter at the bottom of a pond, lake, or some other body of water. Toads and frogs are generally cold-blooded, which means the temperature of their body takes on the temperature of their surroundings. So, frogs can freeze during the winter because of a high concentration of sugar or glucose in their vital organs. Once they unfreeze, they continue as if nothing happened. Octopuses have 3 hearts and blue blood. They can move at speeds of 25 miles per hour, and they spray ink that not only blurs the predator's visual field but actually harms them. Also, they have 9 brains, the central one and 8 smaller brains located in their arms. That's why their arms can open a shellfish while the central brain is busy doing something else. An octopus even tastes with its arms. They have cells in their suckers that enable the arms to touch and taste in a way that they detect chemicals marine creatures produce. That way, an octopus can distinguish prey from rocks.
This day isn't different than any other. Well, not yet anyway. You crawl out of bed, your hair's a mess, a huge yawn stretching your jaws. 5 more minutes and you could be late. So, no time to waste. You blast through your morning routines, skip breakfast, throw on your jacket, and hurriedly close the door. Bang! Darkness. You slowly blink your eyes open. The air smells different, making you feel dizzy. Your ears catch something similar to a Dino movie soundtrack. Once you glance around, though, you realize it looks like a prehistoric world too. It's humid and warm. Everything around you looks green and lush. You spot several creatures moving among the trees. Some of them have bills that make them look like overgrown ducks. Others have horns. That's when your brain kicks in. Those are dinosaurs. So you have indeed somehow moved all the way back to prehistoric times. Right after the realization hits, you feel something tickling your arm. With a feeling of dread, you sneak a peek. What is this creature comfortably nestled on your sleeve? What you notice first is that it's tiny, way smaller than your cat. It's likely napping on your pillow back at home in the moment. Picture a hummingbird, the smallest bird on Earth. The creature on your sleeve is even smaller than that. Is it some weird prehistoric insect? Nope, it's a dino, the tiniest dinosaur that ever lived. The creature's called oculodentavis, which means in Latin, eye-toothed bird. With a skull that's less than 1/4 of an inch long, the animal itself is about 2 inches long. You can hardly feel its weight on your arm. The tiny thing doesn't weigh more than an ounce. The dino is obviously a meat eater. It has more than 100 microscopic teeth. They're conical with sharp edges. For a second, you can't breathe. What if it bites you? You don't even know if the thing is venomous. But it looks as if the dino bird is only interested in insects that are flying by. The creature also has huge eyes. They're so large it's a bit alarming. They face to the sides and bulge out of its head. They're built in the way that makes it clear the tiny dino is active most during the day. If only there was a scientist next to you. They would tell you how such a minuscule creature could exist in the prehistoric world of giants. It was likely because of the miniaturization. That's when relatively large animals became smaller over generations. It sometimes happens to species that live on islands or are isolated from other animals. Another thing an expert could tell you, the creature sitting on your arm might not even be a dino. After scientists examined the ancient animal's skull, or should we say will examine, they suggested it was not a dinosaur, but a lizard. But even if their guess is right, it was a bizarre lizard. After all, it has a bird's head. Anyway, whatever the animal is, you are tired of standing still trying not to disturb it. But as soon as you take a step, everything goes dark. Again. Bang. You cautiously open your eyes. Another day, another jungle. You look around to check your surroundings, and that's when you notice that several massive bushes on the left have started to move. You know you should probably run away as fast as you can, but your curiosity wins. You sneak up closer to have a look, and your ear-piercing shriek is heard miles away. The creature you're looking at is similar to a millipede, an enormous 6-foot-long millipede, the largest among them all. It's called Arthropleura. Scientists aren't sure why this bug, like many others, was so large 300 million years ago. Maybe because there was too much oxygen in the atmosphere, 30% of the air then versus 21% now. It probably helped prehistoric insects grow so massive. Plus, there was nothing around that could eat them. The only comforting thought that doesn't let you pass out from sheer horror is that the monster isn't likely to be a meat eater. It's related to millipedes, and they eat decomposing organic matter. Yum. You hardly have some time to take a breath when something swooshes past you. You realize it's time you got used to scary overgrown creatures. This flying one looks like a dragonfly, but its wingspan is no less than 2 feet. Scientists claim it's been the largest known insect of all time. The craziest thing, though? The insect looks exactly like a scaled-up dragonfly, but it actually belongs to the now extinct order of griffinflies. But what's that? Instead of flying away, the not a dragonfly is turning back. It's moving toward you. Paralyzed by fear, you don't even try to run away. Bang! Darkness. Well, this is getting old. You open your eyes and see a dark shadow towering over your lying body. This is definitely a dino. You even know its name, the Stegosaurus. These large dinosaurs lived during the late Jurassic period, around 150 million years ago. They had absolutely amazing plates placed along their spine. The largest were more than 2 feet tall and 2 feet wide. Stegosauruses were heavy, massive, and clumsy. They grew more than twice as tall as an adult person and weighed about 5 tons. At the same time, this huge body was controlled by a tiny brain. It was twice smaller than the brain of a modern dog. It was one of the reasons why the dinosaur was such a slow thing. Some experts claim its maximum speed was no more than 5 miles per hour. Now, before you have time to get afraid, you realize the creature isn't interested in you whatsoever. But what an impressive plant-eating machine it is! With the help of its toothless beak, it's nipping low-growing plants like pines, firs, and cycads. But soon, you understand you shouldn't let your guard down. a dark shadow covers the sky. Ah, you know this guy too. That's a pterodactyl. It was the first discovered species of pterosaurs, large flying reptiles. The pterodactyl walked on 4 legs and, unlike some other members of its family, it had teeth. By the way, even though pterodactyls were flying creatures, they weren't ancestors of modern-day birds. Those descended from tiny meat-eating dinosaurs that walked on 2 legs and were covered in feathers. Anyway, the creature circling in the air over your head doesn't look as frightening as in the movies. It's rather small, with its wingspan no more than 3 feet. But to be on the safe side, you decide to hide under the trees. Hey, you've been around pigeons. Imagine a present from this character. Never mind. It's just your luck to trip over a tree root while retreating to the questionable safety of the forest. Your back hits the ground. Bang! Darkness. Well, when you come around again, you find it hard to breathe. It feels as if something's wrapped around your body. You raise your head, slowly and cautiously. Is this day gonna end? A colossal snake has coiled itself around you. The creature's so large, you immediately realize it's the Titanoboa. No other reptile, living or extinct, can be that big. The snake weighs more than a ton and is probably around 42 feet long. For comparison, one of the largest modern snakes, the anaconda, weighs 1/4 of a ton and reaches the length of 30 feet at the most. The Titanoboa lived around 60 million years ago in South America. Just like modern anacondas, it loved damp places hidden in tropical rainforests. Scientists aren't sure, but they think the prehistoric reptile could live in or near the water. Then it probably fed on crocodiles, turtles, and even fish. Suddenly, you feel the snake move. Is it going to squeeze tight around you? That's when you start to regret you can't do that time jump thing at your whim, and then, bang, darkness. You find yourself on the bank of a wide river. Once you get closer to the water, you notice something moving under the surface. You lean down to check what it is, but the next moment you spring back in fear. The 2-foot-long fish you see has a single row of triangular razor-sharp teeth, each serrated like a steak knife. It's the mega piranha. Now, be extremely cautious. This creature packs a terrifying bite. Its force is almost 30 times the piranha's weight. And on average, this creature weighed 20 to 30 pounds. For comparison, its modern version doesn't grow heavier than 2 pounds. The mega piranha lived 6 to 10 million years ago in South America. Well, too long ago and too far away from your home. You sit down on the ground farther away from the river and begin to wait. Sooner or later, there will be the already familiar boom and the darkness. It'll mean your adventures will continue. Then you remember that strange-tasting burrito you had for dinner last night. Could there be some connection? And they're off. In the ultimate test of speed versus endurance, the cheetah immediately takes the lead. Reaching highway speeds in only 3 seconds, it's the fastest animal on this planet. But just after 20 seconds, covering a distance of 7 football fields in that time, the cheetah can't keep going. And the pronghorn takes the lead. The speediest animals in North America, they leave their natural enemies, coyotes and bobcats, in the dust. Now, that's what I call fast food. But it's slowing down as well. At a lower speed, they can keep it up for miles. Close behind, look out! It's a blue wildebeest. Max speed aside, these animals travel over vast distances, trekking more than 1,000 miles during their yearly migrations. It would take you 20 hours to drive that. Up next, the king of the jungle himself. Like the cheetah, lions are built for short bursts of speed. They hunt by sprinting to their prey and pouncing on it with leaps of up to 36 feet, almost as long as a semi. More than a few seconds, though, and their muscles tire out. Down they go, one after the other. Cats, rabbits, bears, oh my. Nearly all the sprinters are tuckering out in under a minute. Now we find out who can endure the longest. The fastest two-legged animal and the largest bird on the planet can compete well enough with the sprinters. The tendons in an ostrich's legs are like springs, propelling the animal forward without expending too much energy. But after 45 minutes with its speed continuously falling, the ostrich is finally calling it quits. And there goes the pronghorn along with it. Fun fact, it gets its name from that unique split on each horn, like prongs in a fork. It's the only animal that sheds its horns each year. Usually only antlers fall off yearly. At the 1 hour mark, the camel taps out. It can easily transport large loads over 25 miles a day, but not while running. For windy days in the sand, camels have 3 eyelids protected by 2 rows of long, thick lashes. They can also close their nostrils completely. Boy, that would be handy. The sled dogs are still going strong. They have plenty of energy to keep up the stamina. Sled dogs eat 5 times more calories than your typical domestic pooch, taking in up to 10,000 a day. But at 1 hour and 20 minutes, the fluffy canines are done. The zebras are still hanging in there. As long as they can avoid a lion's quick pounce, they can easily outrun their predators thanks to their stamina. In fact, the lion doesn't get the zebra about 80% of the time. Their equine cousins keep galloping at a steady 10 miles per hour, even though horses can do more than 5 times that. A racehorse is built and bred to endure, as its spleen pumps out more red blood cells to keep those muscles oxygenated. But at the 2.5 hour mark, the horse is out of the race. And with that, the human takes the lead. Blown in the dust at the start of the race, the fastest our species has ever done is 27.8 miles per hour. And that was for a fraction of a second by Olympic sprinter Usain Bolt, not your average Joe. Speed is for the animal kingdom. Humans were built for long-distance running, and we top them all. The best we've got in that department is a man named Dean Karnazes, who jogged 350 miles across Northern California without stopping for 80 hours and 44 minutes. That's over 3 days of non-stop running. Really? He didn't even stop for... Wow. Our species evolved for endurance running. We have a body covered, not in fur, but 2 to 5 million sweat glands. We're aerodynamic and can cool off more efficiently than animals that pant instead of sweat. Our large, strong glute muscles keep us upright. This minimizes our center of gravity and the surface area being hit by the sun. We save energy, maintain balance, and don't get too overheated, unlike the prey our early ancestors would hunt for. It took persistence, not speed. But any average Joe who's ever tried to run after the bus will know humans need to train to run super long distances, and the wear and tear on our muscles and joints is no joke. Regular marathon runners need weeks, even months, of prep before and rest after a competition. The racers have slowed down to a walking pace, and now the animal kingdom can finally impress with its endurance. The Arctic lemming spends most of its day trotting around looking for grub. The tiny 3-ounce creature travels 10 miles a day. That's like you walking the distance of 40 Grand Canyons in 24 hours. A polar bear usually covers 20 miles a day, but some have been tracked traveling 50 or even hundreds of miles. Polar bears are actually considered marine mammals since they spend their lives on the sea ice and depend on the ocean for food. Packs of wolves travel up to 30 miles a day in search of food. Loners looking for a new pack or a mate can travel much further, up to 500 miles. That'd be like going up and down Mount Everest 50 times. And why would you want to do that? During their yearly migrations, caribou can cover over 3,000 miles, more than the distance from San Francisco to New York. The eye color of Arctic caribou changes from gold to blue in the winter. It makes their vision more light sensitive during these months of little sunlight. But what's this? Up in the sky, it's the endurance flyers. Grab your binoculars and have a look at that ruby-throated hummingbird. Weighing not much more than a penny, some of them cross the Gulf of Mexico, a distance of 500 miles, in about 22 hours of nonstop flight. Not bad for the smallest bird on our planet. Whoa, watch out, little guy. It's a peregrine falcon zooming by at 125 miles per hour. These birds can travel up to 800 miles a day and reach speeds of close to 190 miles an hour when diving. It's the fastest endurance flight among birds and technically the fastest animal on Earth. Ooh, a looming shadow covers the peregrine falcon from above. Here comes the biggest flying bird in the world. With its mighty 11-foot wingspan, the wandering albatross can travel 10,000 miles, almost halfway around the world in a single journey. They spend most of their time in flight, coming to land only when it's time to breed. Here we have a globe-trotting dragonfly that recently dethroned the monarch butterfly for the #1 spot among massive insect migrations. Monarchs make an annual 3,000-mile trip from Canada to Mexico, but the globe skimmer dragonfly crosses oceans and flies up to 11,000 miles. If you're looking to set a world record for the longest walk in the world, you'd need to start on the most southern tip of Africa and trek to the furthest northeastern tip of Russia. It's 14,000 miles, more than half the circumference of the Earth. The Arctic Tern covers about 18,500 miles. That's 3/4 of the Earth's circumference in 3 week-long flights. If you tried to hike that, it would take you 4 years to complete such a trip. Still, nothing compared to the bird that can fly non-stop for 200 days in a row. Some swifts can be airborne for 10 months at a time, which means they cover the distance to the moon and back several times in their life. Like many migratory birds escaping winter, they eat and sleep while flying. Switching to X-ray mode and you'll see these birds switch off half their brain for rest, while the other half keeps the flight going. Now, don't be so impressed, humans can do that too. Well, sort of. It's why you sleep so lightly in unfamiliar places. Half your brain is on alert and not entirely sleeping. Humpback whales swim over 6,000 miles every year during the migration season. They hold the record for the longest migration among marine creatures. Fun fact, each humpback's whale tail is as unique to it as a fingerprint. There's even a picture catalog of all the known ones. Yet many sharks would sit back and laugh at all of them, if sharks could laugh. Species like great whites and makos, contemporary relatives of the megalodon, by the way, don't stop swimming their entire lives. If they stop, they won't be able to breathe. Continuous movement allows water to flow through their gills, and that's how they get oxygen. But most of their muscles don't need oxygen to function. That's their white muscle tissue. It's for long-distance endurance swimming. Red muscle tissue, which needs oxygen from the blood, is only used during short bursts of speed. Well, the seahorse is an unusual fish. Normally, female animals carry a child, but seahorses do it the other way around. For 9 to 45 days, the future father carries the eggs inside a special pouch until the birth process begins. Then the male opens his brood pouch and squeezes out the children. The female anaconda finds the deepest puddle and spends her pregnancy in it. She will starve for about 7 months while pregnant. Then she will give birth to 40 children that make up 30% of her body weight. Her babies are completely independent and will explore the world around them. The Suriname toad looks like a normal toad, but is totally flat. Unlike most animals, this one carries its future children not inside, but on its back. Female toads have special holes on their backs for each egg where the babies develop. After 3 to 4 months, the little Suriname toads wake up and crawl out of the pockets on mom's back. Kangaroos are born just 1 month after conception, but they're not yet ready for life in the outside world. Newborn kangaroos are smaller than an inch. These tiny creatures crawl into their mom's pouch using their front legs. After 195 days, the kangaroo grows big and strong enough to leave the pouch. Sea urchins lay more than 2 million eggs, but not all survive. Male and female urchins throw something like a cloud into the water, which contains the future offspring. In the next few hours, if the egg cloud is not eaten by other sea creatures, the eggs will turn into a ball with microscopic hairs and then form a skeleton. At this point, they're ready for their own reproduction. Most animals either lay eggs or have a live birth. But the Jackson's chameleon does both and gives birth up to 30 young at a time. The female bears the eggs, minus a shell, right inside her body, instead of laying them as many other chameleon species do. In the yellowhead jawfish family, a dad fish takes care of the future offspring. The male broods the eggs inside his mouth. After the birth, the male carries his babies in this safe place. The brooding method lets the father keep his children safe because he can swim away from danger with the babies in his mouth. Sloths spend most of their time on the treetops. Their birth process is extravagant. The female lets her hind legs dangle and clings to a branch only by her front ones and gives birth in this position. The baby sloth grabs the mother's fur right after birth and climbs to her chest. The velvet spider builds a special room for giving birth and childcare. Just like weaving a spider web, she constructs a cocoon around her, where she lays up to 80 eggs. Then she makes a hole in the cocoon so that the offspring can escape. But this hole is too small for her, so she will never come out. For 2 weeks, she will feed the hatched spiders until they become independent. Whales, the biggest mammals in the animal kingdom, give birth underwater, so their babies have to rise all the way up to the surface to take their first breath. Mom whale will feed the baby with 54% fat milk for the next 4 months until it grows enough to eat on its own. Octopuses give birth only once in a lifetime. One of the arms of the male octopus is adapted to fertilize females. Some octopus separate the arm from their body and give it to the female. After laying eggs, female octopuses circulate water currents over the eggs to clean them and protect them from predators. Now imagine giving birth to a baby the size of a 4-year-old. Poor mom. But that's what kiwi birds do. Their eggs can weigh up to a quarter of their body mass. To produce such a big egg, female kiwis have to eat 3 times more than usual. Shingleback lizards also have a difficult pregnancy. These animals normally have up to 2 babies, which doesn't seem so bad. But the babies can make up a third of the mother's weight. That's like a human giving birth to a 7-year-old child. Giraffes are some of the tallest terrestrial animals, which has an effect on the birth process. In a giraffe birth, the baby first pokes out the front hooves, then the nose and the entire head. Within an hour, the baby is born. Before taking the first breath, the baby giraffe falls from the height of 6.5 feet to the ground. Ow! Hammerhead sharks can give birth without mating with another shark. Basically, they're just making copies of themselves. This was first discovered in 1999 in a Nebraska zoo. There are just a few other animal species, like some geckos and lizards, that can reproduce this way. Porcupines are known for their sharp quills. In the womb, these quills are soft, but right after birth, when coming in contact with air for the first time, they become hard and sharp. Naked mole rats are incredibly reproductive. They live in colonies and have a queen, who is the only female to give birth. First-time moms can have up to 15 babies, but every litter after, the number of babies grows. At her peak, a mole rat queen can have up to 33 babies, which is the largest litter size of any mammal on Earth. Hippopotamus pregnancies last about 8 months, despite the animal's big size. When ready to give birth, hippo moms leave the herd for 2 weeks to establish a strong connection with their babies. Hippo calves are born underwater, so they learn to swim from the very beginning. Zebras have a really hard time after birth, both for mom and the baby. Zebras are an animal who can see a newborn baby as a potential threat in the future. So when a baby zebra comes out, a male zebra can attack it immediately. The mother protects her offspring, often not having any time to rest. Elephants have the longest gestation period of all mammals, lasting more than 18 months. Though they live up to 70 years, most elephants won't have more than 4 babies. When the elephant mom is ready to give birth, other elephants from the herd form a protective circle around her until she delivers the baby. At birth, they can weigh up to 260 pounds. To protect them from predators, barnacle geese lay eggs on a cliff at 400 feet, which is the height of a 36-story building. When the eggs hatch, the little chicks face a problem. There's no food nearby because they're on a rock. So, at just a few days old, they jump off the cliff and try to make a soft landing. Although marine iguanas don't have to leap off a cliff, they're also in a hurry soon after they're born. Female marine iguanas lay eggs in an underground cave that they dig. This is a safe place to hide from predators, but sooner or later the baby iguanas come out of these caves to eat. And this is the moment when snakes start to hunt them. The fastest and strongest iguanas survive to enjoy the food.
Ah yes, driving through the countryside. Windows down, music, nice and loud. Just another road trip. You see a bunch of cows out the window. One of them really stands out. Literally. The other cows look like black and white hamsters. The Guinness World Record for tallest cow ever goes to this cow named Blossom. This big grass guzzler was 6'4". Somebody better buy that cow some basketball shoes. The average cow's only 4'5". Blossom must have felt like a giant. When you're that tall, you don't just hang around in a field eating grass. Blossom was the official greeter for a local resort. Big Jake. And believe me, big is an understatement. This guy got famous for being the world's tallest horse. Checking in at a whopping 6'11". We're gonna need a whole lot of basketball shoes. What a stud, which actually pretty much just means male horse, so... Now what about this little cutie? The world's shortest female horse. Her name is Thumbelina. What a perfect name. And she's only about 1'5". That didn't stop her from going viral though. Oh, and the shortest male horse is called Bumble. It means bubble in Polish. He's only 2 feet tall, but his heart is larger than life. So cute and shorter than a greyhound. Now, I'm a full-out dog person. Well, regular-sized dog person. Zeus, a Great Dane, was officially the world's tallest dog. Being 3'8" on all fours made you think you were looking at a small horse. Imagine that face waking you up in the morning. And what about taking him out for a walk? You'd have needed a pretty strong leash. According to his owners, he was a gentle giant and was usually laid back, luckily. And Zeus had a really important job. He was a certified therapy dog, spreading his love and joy to all in need. Imagine a dog like that. You wouldn't need to put out a water bowl every day. He could just drink straight out of the tap. Hugging would be on a whole different level, too. How much do you think that guy ate? Would he have even fit on your bed? So many questions. Now what if you're a cat person? You'd better prepare yourself. Ha! Get it? Anyway, this cool cat over here has been called the world's longest domesticated cat. His name's Baravel, which means clown, and he comes from a small town in Italy. He's a gentle giant too, which is good because he's longer than a baseball bat. When they see a photo, people usually think he's been photoshopped. He enjoys basking in the sun by the window, staring out into the backyard. Hunting mice must feel like chasing ants to him. The previous title holders were called Ludo and Stewie, the same breed as Baravel. That's a lot of cat fur on my mom's new sofa. Sheesh. Hopping up next is a rabbit named Darius. His long ears and cute button nose aren't why he's special. A regular rabbit's about 14 inches, but Darius here, just over 50. That's basically a rabbit dog. Darius grew up on a farm in England, and living out in an open field gave him a super chill personality. Feeding him must be tough though. Darius must be a carrot-eating machine. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. Enough of the cute stuff. Time for some more exotic animals. Maybe even mythical ones. Myths are just how people explain crazy things. Like the legend of the white-lipped man. That turned out to be just me eating cheesecake. quick and shifty under the water, able to bring down an entire ship. The Kraken was famous for disappearing ships. That's what the legends say. Probably just a sailor's tale told to scare the new recruits. But researchers may have found its baby brother. The largest ever recorded squid was almost 60 feet long, but the researchers forgot to video it. Oh, no. The largest squid ever caught on camera was about 25 feet. That's like an RV. Scientists think there might be larger ones out there, but they're kind of camera shy. The great white shark, frightening ocean animals left and right. She's called the Queen of the Ocean. She's not one of those kind and gentle queens. Oh no. Scientists were able to tag her to study her more. This queen weighs about 3,500 pounds. That's like 6 motorbikes, or 14,000 hot dogs. She was caught in the waters off Nova Scotia by a team of terrified researchers. Good thing sharks only chill in the ocean. Unless, what about an episode of Shark Ninja Warriors? That was the biggest. Now, the longest. Good guess, but nope, definitely not a snake. But it is as long as half a football field. This animal was discovered in the deep waters off Australia. They found it there, glowing. And get this, scientists say it isn't even a single creature. It just acts like one. It's actually a whole colony, cloning and multiplying until it gets even bigger. Its technical name, This next animal can move on land and water. Don't be fooled by its short, scrawny legs. A crocodile can run as fast as a human on land. So if you're running a lap against these sprinters, try to climb up a tree as high as you can. Crocs can't climb trees, but you'd better believe they'll be waiting for you when you get down. They're also the heaviest reptiles in the world. An adult can weigh about the same as 2 small cars. The largest one in captivity was a saltwater croc in the Philippines. Lolong was his name, and he was 20 feet long. That's like 2 ping pong tables end to end, with a whole bunch of teeth. Slithering up next, another reptile, a beast of a serpent from Malaysia. Some workers were on break at a construction site on a hot day. They noticed something. Was it a large pipe? Well, this time it was a snake. They pulled out the longest python ever captured. It took more than 5 men to carry it out of the construction site without harming it or themselves. The beast was 26 feet long and weighed around 550 pounds. That's only a bit shorter than a light post. The previous record for the longest snake in captivity was the famous Medusa, also a python. That kind of snake can eat its whole weight for lunch. That's like me eating 280 burgers. I definitely don't want fries with that. Back to the water. Behold, the heaviest blue catfish ever caught. The Andersons bagged this guy in Virginia back in 2011, and they've been bragging about it ever since. Weighing in at a whopping 143 pounds, that's like fishing a washing machine out of the lake while standing on a small boat. That's why it took both father and son to drag it on deck. Honorable mention goes to the largest living cat in the world. Nope, it's not a lion or a tiger, but a little bit of both. It's a liger. Ligers don't exist out in nature, since lions and tigers live in totally different parts of the world. Than wildlife parks, it's been done. Hercules holds this particular record. At over 900 pounds, he's the biggest carnivore mammal in the whole world. He's got his length from his mom, a tiger, and his weight from his dad, a lion called Arthur. Want to know what it's called when the mom is a lion and the dad's a tiger? A tigon. They're way less common than ligers, but they're just as bizarre. That sort of sounds like the ancient Greek mythical creature, the chimera. It was part lion, part goat, part snake, and some stories say it even had bat wings. Oh, and it breathed fire too. You'd need to bring in a whole bunch of Spartan firefighters to take care of that thing. But it probably hosts a sweet barbecue party. So what about us humans? The award goes to Robert Wadlow from Illinois. He was a staggering 8 foot 11 inches, and he could pick up his dad when he was just 9 years old. Just let that sink in for a while. He ate over 8,000 calories a day, and his shoe size was 37 AA.
Hard to believe, but zebras have completely black skin under their striped coats. They need the markings to control their body temperature. This creates a flow of cool air that circulates across their bodies. They can also raise the hair on the black stripes to trap heat, while the white hair stays completely flat. So, if zebras were completely white or black, they would need to find some other way to maintain their temperature. They'd need to find a new way to avoid predators as well. The black decorations also create a dazzle effect, which means that when the zebra is running, the stripes make it hard to understand what direction it's moving in. Pandas don't use their coats to control their body temperature. The black markings around their eyes are vital for surviving in the forest. They help them to recognize and communicate with other pandas. They're hunted by leopards, so the black fur on their faces and limbs make them less noticeable. They can blend into their surroundings when it's dark. And those big white patches help them hide during winter. Cheetahs have over 2,000 individual black spots all over their bodies. Each one has a unique pattern. They need those spots to stay camouflaged when stalking their prey. Cheetahs are born with these spots, so even when they're cubs, they can stay hidden and protected. Without the spots, well, it'd be much harder for them to both hunt and hide. Underneath, their skin is all one color and doesn't have any spots at all. Unlike cheetahs, tigers have their famous pattern on both their fur and their skin. They use their stripes to hide from their prey by blending into the high grass. Tiger colors are nothing like the color of grass, but here's the thing. Lots of animals in the wild are colorblind and can only distinguish between black, white, and shades of gray. Plenty of creatures have stripes, but bumblebees are some of the smallest ones. Their black and yellow stripes help protect them from predators. They're like a warning that, hey, eating a bee can lead to a very unpleasant sting. Bees can also be completely black and completely white, but they're not albinos. They can also have red, orange, and yellow stripes, and even blue, green, and purple ones. Try to find a mammal that's as colorful as a mandrill, and you'll fail for sure. They have red, pink, blue, and purple features on their faces and behinds. Their colors usually determine their social status. The brighter, the more important they are. The brightest mandrill is always the boss. These animals live in groups of up to 200. Hormones make them lose the hair on their pseudopons, so the bright colors are exposed even more. The colors also become brighter when the mandrill is excited. So yes, it's their other cheeks that blush. That's only the males though. Females are brown-colored and have no bright patches at all. Grown-up baboons look really similar to mandrills, but their colors work in a different way. When they've just been born, they're completely pink, but their skin gets darker as they get older. A weird thing happens to the hair on their bodies. Newborn baboons have black fur, but it gets lighter and lighter as they grow up. Eventually, they become a light gray color. Now, it's hard to say why this happens, but the gray color is probably to help them camouflage. Male jumping spiders are almost as colorful as mandrills. They might have red, blue, and yellow colors on their bodies. But the female jumping spiders aren't attracted by these colors. Instead, they use them as a signal that they're poisonous. They may look scary, but this kind of spider is actually really friendly. Jaguars have incredible and unique patterns. Each of their spots looks like a rose, which is why they're called rosettes. Though jaguars look a lot like leopards, it's pretty easy to spot the difference. Jaguars are bigger than leopards, and so are their spots. Sometimes, though, a mutation occurs, and both these cats can turn completely black. These black ones are called black panthers. That's right, they're not actually a separate species. You look marvelous. Peacocks seem colorful, but their feathers are actually brown. The feathers of these funky-looking birds have a weird design that reflects light in a special way. This makes them look blue, emerald, and turquoise. Sometimes their colors change depending on what direction you look at them from. For peacocks, It's really important to show off the eye patterns on their tails to impress the other birds. Keeping up with the peacocks. They have around 200 big feathers in their tails, and 170 of those have eyes. Polar bears have completely black skin underneath their white fur. Actually, even their fur isn't really white. The hair on their coats is hollow and almost transparent, which makes them completely invisible in the snow. But their black skin absorbs the heat from the sunshine. The trouble is, they need to keep their fur clean all the time, otherwise it doesn't keep them warm. Giraffes need the patches on their fur to camouflage themselves. No two giraffes have the same pattern. It's unique, just like our fingerprints. But their patterns are actually more complicated than they seem. They have a complex system of blood vessels under the patches. They help the heat circulate, because that's where the blood is really close to the surface. Their skin itself doesn't have any traces of these special patches, though. Turtles all have different patterns, too. Their patterns are made up of squares called scoots. Got a scoot. Sometimes these can be brightly colored to attract other turtles. Their shell patterns are actually affected by how warm or cold they were before they were born. If the temperature is pretty low, the turtles end up with a thicker and larger pattern. If the temperature is higher, the turtles have smaller squares when they hatch. Brightly colored wings are actually really useful to butterflies. They're used for warning others, as camouflage, and to attract other butterflies. The patterns differ a lot on the surface and on the back of the wings. 1 or 2 days before the larvae become adult butterflies, they start developing colors. It's the scales on the butterfly's wings that determine exactly what color it'll be. The color of the scales usually comes from chemical pigments. But sometimes, their amazing colors are just a reflection of the light. Another super colorful animal is the red-eyed tree frog. When they're still little froglets, their bodies are a straightforward brown color. But when they grow up, their bodies turn green, and they have yellow and blue stripes on their sides. Their feet can be orange or even red, just like their eyes, and there are spots of blue on the legs. These creatures end up looking like little rainbows in order to camouflage themselves. Also, when the frog runs away, predators can be confused by all the flashing colors. The map pufferfish is a true genius when it comes to camouflage. They don't have scales, but their skin looks exactly like coral, which helps protect them from predators. Their skin is white, but it's covered in black, brown, and green lines. But just in case something does try to make the puffer its next meal, they're also really toxic. Boa constrictors have beautiful patterns on them that are made up of different colored scales. Their scales are heat sensitive, and so are their lips. Hey, kiss one and find out. This helps them locate potential prey. Their color is more important for camouflage, although you can sometimes find albino boas. The cows that give us the milk we drink and have that distinctive pattern are called Holstein Friesian cows. No one is really sure why they need those patterns. Some of them aren't black and white, though. They can also be red and white because of a recessive gene. But you'll never see 2 cows with an identical pattern. All of them are exclusive. So there. Poison dart frogs are seriously bright. Their color is a crazy mix of orange and red, almost neon, but they can also be turquoise. Some of them even have patches of gold along with black spots. These bright colors help solve 2 challenges at once. First, they let all the other animals know just how poisonous they are. This is a good idea, as you wouldn't want to eat one. Sometimes it's actually good to have a bad reputation. A single 1-inch long golden poison frog has enough poison to finish off 10 adults. Second, it helps the male frogs attract females who prefer brighter frogs over paler ones. Apparently, the poison thing is not a deal breaker with the ladies. The king of comedy in the wild is definitely the chameleon. Make that chameleon, the king of color. Some of them can change their hues completely. Others can only vary the shade of their skin. There's a really complicated process going on here with their changing colors. Their skin contains pigments, and underneath these are cells with special crystals. Chameleons can alter the space between those crystals, making the light reflect differently on their bodies. This changes their skin color. They do this to camouflage themselves, although some use it to regulate their body temperature. And yes, also to tell funny jokes. Psst, run! Really, it's not safe out there. There's a saber-toothed tiger lurking around. You better be careful. What are you doing? Don't peek. Okay, just one little peek. How's this possible, you ask? That's because you're in virtual reality, of course. These cool but very dangerous-looking big cats were alive during the last ice age. What if they decided to show up at your doorstep out of nowhere? Knock knock, a saber-toothed tiger is waiting for you to buy its cookies. Meanwhile, the coelacanth, this massive-looking fish, comes from a lineage that's been around for over 300 million years. We thought they didn't exist anymore until 1938, that is, when a live coelacanth was found again. Since then, they've been roaming the waters of the east coast of Africa and the waters of Sulawesi, Indonesia. Man, I wouldn't want to go for a swim and meet one of these fellas face to face. Their jaw has an intercranial joint, which means their mouth opens up by a lot. This is so they can eat large prey, like me. Not good. They're huge, too. Imagine a fish that's as long as you're tall and weighing as much as an average human. The Takah, a flightless bird, was thought to be gone in the year 1898. They're very cute, small and multicolored, usually not taller than your knee. But picture this. You're out for a hike in the Murchison Mountains. Looking around, you spot the bird you thought was extinct. But there they are, as happy as ever, surviving and chilling. Whole colonies of Takahs was indeed found just 50 years after they were pronounced extinct. Good job, tiny little birds. A singing dog. Ever heard of those? Riley does sing sometimes when he's bored or hungry, but these are real performers. New Guinea singing dogs. They've been only recently discovered again in the wild for the first time in 50 years. Still, they were never completely extinct to begin with. New Guineans made sure they were safe next to them. But in the wild, very rare and hard to catch a sight of. Look, there goes one. The New Guinea singing dogs are called so because of their famous high-pitched singing. They sometimes sing together, too. A dog choir of sorts, where they all howl together. I bet they sing better than I do in the shower. Not going far from this area, we have bats, but these ones are sort of different. You see, their ears are enormous. I guess that's why they're called the New Guinea Bigeared Bats. Clever. The species was found again when one of them was accidentally caught in a bat trap. Until then, I guess they were playing hide-and-seek with us, because up till 1890, they had been thought to be gone. They're still not out of the danger zone because of habitat loss. Imagine you discover a fossil of a species you thought had been extinct for a long time, yet 2 years later, a whole living group of said species is found. Well, this is exactly what happened in 1977 with the Majorcan midwife toad. It's sort of brownish in color with darker brown that makes up its skin spots. Other than that, it's just a small toad with googly eyes. The group of live toads was found close to where the fossil was, on the island of Majorca. There aren't many of them left, about 500 in fact, and as of right now, they're declared vulnerable by the International Union for Conservation of Nature. Now, are you a fan of tortoises? You will be when you take a look at this huge beauty. It's called the Ferdinanda Island Galapagos Tortoise. It hasn't been seen since 1906, but on February 17, 2019, we were finally able to look at one of these beautiful creatures. It's probably out there with a few of its mates right now, but they also don't allow themselves to be seen. We only know they exist because there's a few tracks and scents. With yet another frog, we have the horned marsupial frog. They're out and about in Ecuador, in the Chocó forest to be more specific. They're called this way because of their distinctive horns directly on top of their eyes. You know the pouch kangaroos use to carry their offspring? Well, the female horned marsupial frog also has that, except it's on the back, so it acts as sort of a backpack. They develop their embryos there, and when they're ready to come out, They hatch as complete infants, unlike regular frogs where they start out as tadpoles. One more toad, the starry night toad or Harlequin toad. They're black and covered with loads of white spots all over them. Lost for 30 years, it was discovered back in 2019. Picture them as big bodyguards, water bodyguards to be exact. Oh, that's a very big toad on your screen. Well, for the Arhuaco people, that's exactly what they are, guardians of water. They also have their own name for them, Guna. Sounds like a cheese. When scientists found them yet again, they came across 30 of these little creatures, but initially, they were expecting only one. Well, what a nice surprise. Here's a tiger for you, although it doesn't quite look like your typical tiger. It's called the Tasmanian tiger, and it seemingly disappeared since 1936. But then, out of nowhere, people started seeing them out there in the wild just 5 years ago in 2016. They sort of resemble dogs more than tigers, or a fox maybe. Just take a look at its muzzle. Maybe even a mix of both. Then, a few others started popping up too. And if you happen to think you're seeing one right in front of you, but you're not quite sure, check if they've got stripes on their back. They're definitely out there, but still technically marked as extinct by the IUCN. Okay, picture a horse that looks straight out of a movie scene. Tiny, gorgeous fur, very well behaved. It's tiny, but it's not a pony. It's a Caspian horse. They have an interesting backstory to them. They were discovered by Louise Leyland, who got married to an aristocrat in 1957. Having moved to Tehran, Iran, she didn't quite like how the horses behaved there, so she took matters into her own hands. She took a few people with her, and off they went to the Caspian Sea mountain. And in there, they found 3 of these beautiful tiny little horses. Now, that's how the story goes. Coming up next, a possum that was found in an unexpected place. Guess where? You have 3 options to pick from: hiding in a ski resort, in the Australian outback, or in someone's apartment in the bathroom. Which one do you choose? You have 3 seconds. The right answer is a ski resort. Yes, this possum is called the mountain pygmy possum, and it's originating from Australia. So far, there are 3 different living populations of this tiny possum, but it was believed to be extinct until just 1966. There are fewer than 100 of them, so the IUCN has marked them as critically endangered. Also from Australia is the night parrot, an absolute delight to birdwatchers. Very beautiful, yet mysterious. These little fellas live in very remote areas. You can probably count on the fingers of your hand how many times these birds have been seen since they were found again in 1979. That's how rare they are. Have you ever seen a pygmy tarsier? Neither have I. It was only in 2008 that 3 of them were caught. Scientists don't really want to lose track of their movements again, so what they did was gift them with tiny little collars. This way they can live their life as happy as ever and will know they're safe. The last one I want to tell you about is the tree lobster, but as the name might mistakenly tell you, they're not really lobsters. They're just big black bugs with huge legs. Their extinction story is a sad one. In 1920, a cargo ship got stuck on Lord Howe Island, and it had rats aboard. These rats fled the ship and ran straight to land. Even though tree lobsters are bigger than most insects, they're still relatively small compared to rats. The poor things never stood a chance. Still, in 2004, life shone again for these distinct critters. A pair of Australian scientists were out and about on the island and came across 24 of them. All of them were living beneath one single shrub. Hey, if there's enough space for everyone, it's not small, it's cozy. Bottom line, it's better to be distinct than extinct. Don't you agree? Fail. What a waste of an hour running around with a rolled-up newspaper trying to get that fly that keeps buzzing around your head. Well, 3 things. Why isn't it afraid of you? And why won't it just fly away? And how is it so incredibly fast? Flies actually have a pretty normal speed for their size. You're just a bit too slow. A tiny fly brain reacts several times faster than yours to what it sees. 1 second to the fly feels like 5 or 6 to you. When a fly looks at you, it sees you as if you're hanging out at the bottom of your local pool, moving around really slowly. What if you dropped a balloon from your bedroom window and watched it fall to the ground? That's how slow a fly sees regular things fall. So it has ninja reaction speeds, but it also has special eyes. They're divided into thousands of receptors that capture light all at the same time. You use small muscle to turn your eyes and head around to look in different directions. Flies don't have these muscles. They don't need them. They can see in every direction at the same time almost. No matter what side you attack from, that fly's almost definitely going to see it coming. You've probably seen supersonic planes in the movies, turning and flipping around at warp speed. A fly's kind of like that, but with way cooler wings. It can change directions mid-flight, stop, and dodge any obstacles. It can even calculate a flight strategy before it takes off. Well, this time you're really gonna swat that fly. As you raise your rolled-up paper, the insect's brain calculates where it's gonna land. The fly immediately puts its body in the perfect position, ready to perform an evasive maneuver. If your hand moves in front of the insect, its legs immediately tilt backwards to help it fly off in the other direction. Wow, that fly would make a great boxer or soccer goalie. So why does that fly even bother sticking around? You're always trying to squish it. Well, because your body is a 5-star feast and your skin is the buffet table with row upon row of tasty treats. As you move about your day, your skin releases sweat, proteins, carbs, salt, sugar, and all other chemicals that flies are crazy about. Imagine you're hungry and thirsty, walking through a desert. You come over a tall sand dune and see it. Free food! Tables of fruit, candy, sandwiches, and the world's biggest soda fountain. The bouncer looks big, tough, round. It's a giant slow turtle. Now you know why the fly sticks around. You're the turtle. You actually do have a chance to get that fly, but it's still going to get away 8 times out of 10. Say a fly sitting on your kitchen table. Here's what you do. You need to aim a few inches in front of where you think it's going to fly to. The fly brain will think you're aiming right at it, so you can actually outwit the fly and take it by surprise. The problem? It's really hard to predict the fly's escape route. So you're too slow. How about calling in some backup? Meet the tiger beetle. Speed 8 feet per second. It can't fly, but that doesn't matter. This beetle runs so fast, it loses the ability to see while it's moving. It aims itself at a target and then runs. It's not a ninja like the fly, and it can't change directions mid-sprint. It has to stop before each run. You walk at around 4.5 feet per second, so the beetle goes like twice your speed. But for its size, it's incredibly fast. It runs 125 lengths of its body in 1 second. Now, say you're 6 feet tall. You have to run 750 feet in 1 second. As long as it's on the same surface as that pesky fly, the fly doesn't stand a chance. Or maybe it's time to call in air support. The dragonfly is the fastest flying insect in the world. This little creature can reach 35 miles per hour. That's faster than you riding your bike down a steep hill. The dragonfly's wings also allow it to fly back, right, left, up and down, just like a helicopter. Doesn't matter how fast the fly moves, it's pretty much game over. Flies, dragonflies, and tiger beetles are fast because they don't want to spend a lot of extra time out in the open. There are a lot of hungry creatures around. But there's one insect that runs fast because if it stopped, ouch! To meet a speedy silver ant, you need to go to the Sahara Desert. The sand here is so hot you could fry an egg on it. Sandy. That's why the silver ant speeds at around 2.5 feet per second. It doesn't want to burn its feet. It also has triangle-shaped hair that reflects heat, helping the ant escape the scorching sun. If that ant were human-sized, It could run at 400 miles per hour, faster than the fastest car in the world. There's another ant that holds a speed record. The Dracula ant can't run as fast as the silver ant, but it has the fastest mouth in the world, other than me. It can open and close its jaws 5,000 times, all in the blink of an eye. Literally. How about another fast one, this time a bit closer to home, or in it? The American cockroach can hide in the walls, behind the stove, pretty much anywhere. It's almost impossible to catch. It can run 5 feet per second. That's because of its 6 legs. Each one has 3 knees. Its legs are covered with small hairs that sense any change in the air. That's why it reacts so fast when you walk into the kitchen and turn the light on. And the world record for fastest creature on land is the size of a sesame seed. It's a type of mite, and it can move at 322 body lengths per second. If you zap the mite to turn it to human size, it could go almost 2 times faster than the speed of sound. The mite can even change direction while moving. That makes it the fastest, most elusive creature on the planet. But let's find some animals that actually make us feel good about ourselves. The garden snail. It belongs to the mollusk family, and it likes to take its sweet time. If you were moving at snail speed, you'd take 2 steps every 2 hours. But snails don't care. They've been around for hundreds of millions of years. Snails use their shell for protection, but they have other tricks too. Some snails give off a nasty smell so that no one bothers them. If it gets too hot and dry, snails hide in their shells and seal themselves in using that cool slime they make. That slime also helps them climb up trees. Sloths are the slowest mammals on the planet. Thanks to their slow metabolism, food can take up to 16 days to get digested. Wouldn't be that hard to catch up to one of them. But their slowness actually helps them. You know how in the movies they say, "Stop, don't make any sudden movements"? Well, a sloth has that part down cold. Other animals simply don't notice them up there among the leaves. Manatees are one of the slowest sea creatures, but they're not too worried about anyone messing with them, except for humans in motorboats. They are huge and they have thick skin. It's like a sea tank, but way cuter. Another slow swimmer is the Greenland shark. It swims at less than 1 mile per hour. Like the manatee, it's large and in charge. No one's likely to challenge it face to face. But this all leads to the most hilarious snacking technique ever. The Greenland shark is basically slower than every single fish in the water. The only chance it has is to wait for some of those fish to fall asleep. Then it's snack time. The cool thing is that their easygoing lifestyle actually prolongs their life. The average lifespan of a Greenland shark is 300 to 500 years. They live in the North Atlantic and Arctic Oceans. Imagine you're on a cruise and you see one of these slow-motion giants. It might be 400 years older than you. Jellyfish and coral. One looks like a plant while the other swims like a fish. And yet, somehow they're related. These two belong to the same family group of creatures with stinging tentacles. Ow! Hard to say it for coral, but it's actually an animal. Plants make their own food, corals don't. They're made up of thousands of polyps, which are tiny coral creatures. They have kind of small tentacle-like arms they use to catch food and sweep it into their mouths. They look all innocent and harmless like a marine flower just standing there doing nothing. That's probably what jellyfish think too, floating near them, hiding from some bigger predators. And bam, when it least expects it, coral grabs one. Biologists were surprised at how strong coral was. Catching a bigger animal that moves, unlike them, was excellent teamwork. A couple of polyps grab the jelly's bell with tentacles, while others quickly go for its feeding arms. And poor jelly has no chance to escape. Since they're distant cousins, scientists believe corals are immune to the venom from jelly stingers. Scorpions and ticks. Ticks sure look like insects, but following their lineage, scientists realize they're closely related to scorpions. They can both live on liquid food, have a great sense of smell, which they use to find food, and 8 legs. Scorpions are better at surviving harsh conditions. They can go an entire year without food. But when eating, which is every couple of weeks, they don't only go for small critters like insects and spiders, but for mice and some lizards too. It looks like both of them have been around for over 400 million years. Yup, long before dinosaurs arrived, or me. Scientists think they could be one of the first animals that moved from water to land. They found the fossilized claw of a sea scorpion 18 inches long, which implies the beast itself was 8 feet long. In fact, after finding the claw, scientists realized giant crabs, scorpions, and spiders used to be way bigger than we think. Meerkats and civet cats. They look like cats, and yet neither is remotely related to them. But they have pretty long, nimble bodies, which makes them distant cousins of weasels and mongooses. They both bring their juveniles in underground dens, but meerkats like teamwork. They do most stuff together, which includes taking care of and raising young ones. Civets are more introverts that don't like group gatherings. When born, they're fully furred, can move, and are basically ready for the world. Meerkats in the earliest stages of life don't have senses and need a little more time to mature. As adults, they're pretty tough though. Strong enough to survive snake's venom, have their own methods of catching scorpions, excellent vision, and are able to survive without water. They only get liquid from what they eat. Civets are nocturnal, while meerkats appreciate a good night's snooze and are active during the day. Humans and kangaroos. Well, we kind of split our ways around 150 million years ago, but we still have a common lineage, and as scientists discovered a couple of years ago, an almost identical genome. This may give us more answers about what we were like back in the day. Good, I wasn't around then. While the right hand is dominant in most humans, some of us are left-handed. It's the same for kangaroos. After they started walking on 2 legs, they got 2 free hands to perform other tasks, which is when one side naturally became dominant. As for the tail, kangaroos, like most mammals, have it for a better balance, especially when running. In our evolutionary family tree, the tail disappears. Gorillas, chimps, or other apes, including us, don't have it. 4-legged animals need a lot of energy for every step they take, while we can walk on 2 legs more easily because of gravity. Every time we take a step, it kind of pulls us forward. That way, we use 25% less energy than we would walking on all 4s. So now we don't need tails to balance. Ants and bees. Wait a minute, Aunt Bee from the Andy Griffith Show? She was an insect? No. If there was a family reunion, bees wouldn't invite wasps. Scientists used to think ants were closer relatives to wasps. It turns out they're related to just some species like digger wasps and more likely to bees. Both ants and bees have specific eyes made up of other tiny eyes and antennae. They're both social, live in bigger groups, they're hardworking and strongly appreciate teamwork. They build nests and return there after eating. They're also both very socially responsible. Ants clean the environment, remove leaves, food leftovers, remains of bugs, eat harmful insects, and dig tunnels, which helps plants grow better since there's more air reaching the soil. Bees make honey and pollinate flowers, which is part of the reason why nature is so diverse. Birds and dinosaurs. Birds come from a meat-eating group where T-Rex also belongs, called theropods. Ooh, here a pod, there a pod, everywhere a pod. Fossils of ancient birds are 150 million years old. They look like small dinosaurs with feathers, and also had sharp teeth. But many dinos had feathers too, and not only those that could fly. T-Rex juveniles would come out of an egg in the shape of soft, fuzzy balls, similar to birds. Feathers were useful to keep them warm and protected. Velociraptor was also covered in feathers and had jointed wrists, hinged ankles, and 3 toes. Some dinosaurs also had hollow bones. Some sat on eggs to keep them warm, while others slept with their head under the arm with folded limbs, just like birds. And the claws were similar too. Whales and cows. A long, long time ago, around 50 million years, you weren't around either, there was a small animal walking along the rivers of southern Asia. It had hooves and slender legs. The creature would feed on land, but whenever it sensed something dangerous coming, it would hop into the water for safety. This animal, Indohus, was the earliest relative of what we know today as whales and dolphins. Once this unusual creature got to the water, it was more clear how it evolved into a whale. Its relatives that stayed on the land hid a different direction. They're what we know today as hoofed mammals, including cows, sheep, pigs, giraffes, camels, deer, and even hippos. Horseshoe crabs and spiders. These crabs do have a shell similar to other crabs and spend most of their time crawling around the seafloor. But despite that and their name, They're more related to spiders than other crabs they probably hang out with. Horseshoe crabs have 10 eyes on their sides and back, blue blood, and can replace body parts. How handy! This crab has a segmented body with jointed legs, just like spiders do. They've been on Earth for 500 million years already, and their prehistoric ancestors could grow up to 2 feet. They had pretty long tails, which they used as a digging tool when they needed to get the food. With their tails, they can even right themselves when they fall and end up upside down. Luckily for us, they never evolved enough to end up walking on land as their cousins do. Now, an interesting trio here: tapirs, horses, and rhinos. Although tapirs look more like pigs with trunks, they're related to neither those nor the elephants. Rhinos originally come from North America, and the early ones didn't look like the big, thick-skinned rocks we see today. They were slender mammals, the size of a pony. Some of the earliest horses also wandered those same areas and looked like small dogs with hoofed toes. The first tapirs were small too. Scientists also discovered a little hoofed mammal, here's her long name, that lived in India, which was an island back then, over 50 million years ago. Its lower jaw bones were fused, and the creature was an herbivore, just like horses and rhinos. It wasn't their ancestor, but it helped the scientists figure out how these three go in the same group. Elephant and sea cow. Sea cows used to walk on land, and the proof is that scientists found an interesting animal, this guy, from the sea cow's early family tree. It lived in prehistoric Jamaica and went extinct 40 million years ago. Today's sea cow weighs like an average piano, and you can find them in rivers and shallow coastal waters of the Caribbean, Amazon River, West Africa, and the southern U.S., where they're called manatees. The elephant weighs as much as a school bus and lives in tropical areas of Asia and Africa. They took different paths, but seeing this unusual-looking fella, you can somehow see the connection there. Now, sloths can hold their breath longer than dolphins. Yep, incredible but true. They slow their heart rate so much they can stay under the surface for up to 40 minutes. Unlike fish, dolphins and whales are aquatic mammals, which means they can't breathe underwater. When it comes to breathing, they're more similar to us than the fish. Both of them have lungs, and they breathe air through something we know as a blowhole. When they're under the surface, they hold their breath until they come up for some air again. Dolphins can stay under the water for 10 minutes. A sperm whale can hold its breath for 90 minutes, while an elephant seal holds the record when it comes to aquatic mammals and can stay under the water for 2 hours without having to go up. There's a wasp so tiny, much tinier than its name, it's smaller than an amoeba, even though amoebas are made of one cell only. You can see this wasp has the same body parts as the rest of the bugs, wings, brain, eyes, and the rest, but it's really a tiny version of an insect since it's only 8/1000ths of an inch long. And the smallest adult insect we know of is a parasitic wasp with a big name, also known as the fairy fly. Their males don't have wings, they're blind, and only 5/1000ths of an inch long. Now, it's no coincidence each animal species has different colors and patterns. One of the reasons for that is to help them stand out when looking for their potential mating partners, or to send a warning to predators they're poisonous and hope they get the message right. Then there are ambush predators, such as tigers. It's very important for them to remain invisible because the difference is huge. If their prey sees them before they get there, no dinner that night. But why exactly are tigers orange? For us, orange is a color used for things that need to be ultra-visible. For example, items such as safety vests or traffic cones. To the human eye, orange will mostly stand out in the environment. So if there's a tiger coming for you, you'll spot it relatively easily. But humans have so-called trichromatic color vision. When light from your surroundings enters your eye, it hits the retina, a thin layer located in the back. To process that light, the retina uses 2 kinds of light receptors, rods and cones. Rods can only distinguish differences in light and darkness. They can't sense color. Our eyes will mostly rely on rods in dim light. Cones are in charge of color perception. Humans mostly have 3 types: cones for green, blue, and red. That's exactly why we call our vision trichromatic. Most humans see 3 primary colors, together with their colorful combinations. Apes and some monkeys also have such a style of vision. But most mammals that live on land, including cats, horses, deer, and dogs, have dichromatic color vision. Retinas in their eyes have cones for two colors only, green and blue. When humans get information from their green and blue cones only, they're considered colorblind since they can't, for example, tell the difference between green and red shades. This is similar with mammals that live on land. Deer are surely tigers' prey way more than humans, and deer don't see tigers as orange, but green. Green tigers would surely be more difficult to spot, which would mean more dinner for tigers. But evolution still decided to go with orange because it's simply easier to produce such a color. The only green mammal is a sloth, but its fur is not naturally green. It's because of the algae that grows in it, and they can hold their breath for 40 minutes. The water around the poles can get very cold during certain periods of the year. There's plenty of fish that live there, but when that happens, they need to swim away to survive. But there's a special group of fish native to the Southern Ocean near Antarctica. The temperatures there are from 28 to 39 degrees Fahrenheit. Technically, that's below freezing, but all those dissolved salts in the seawater don't allow it to freeze over. And these fish can survive because they have a special feature called glycoprotein. It helps them stay in their home because it acts as sort of a natural antifreeze. It's a protein that prevents all those ice crystals from forming in their blood and helps it continue to flow normally. Have you ever wondered how tiny animals like ants breathe? Try to open your mouth and throat, but at the same time, hold your chest and diaphragm still. The diaphragm is a muscular structure that separates the chest and abdominal cavities in all mammals. It expands as you breathe. If you can't do this, you can't hold your breath, because oxygen will still find its way into your lungs, at least enough of it to keep up with your body's demands. But generally, when you breathe, diaphragm is actively pumping air in and out of your body. To survive without the diaphragm doing so, you'd need more than one throat and a way smaller body. Now, ants have 9 or 10 pairs of openings along the sides of their tiny bodies. They're called spiracles, and each is connected to branching series of tubes. It's a system similar to human lungs. Their blood doesn't carry oxygen from those tubes to the rest of the body. Instead, the tubes spread this oxygen. The endings of these branches directly touch the membranes of their cells. This can only work in really small animals. When the body is bigger than 0.8 of an inch, these tubes are too long, so they can't diffuse air fast enough. There are a couple of reasons why giraffes have long necks, which, by the way, can grow up to be 6.5 feet long. From first glance, it seems evolution gave them those to reach the sweetest topmost leaves of the trees. It's exclusive access other animals can only dream of, so giraffes don't have to compete for the best bites. But over time, researchers realized it's not the only reason. They also think the neck could be a good factor when male giraffes go into combat, the same as male antelopes will use their prongs or when a stag uses its antlers. The thicker the neck, the bigger the chances to win the combat. Some insects play possum when there's a predator nearby. For instance, in one research, scientists have observed an antlion larva insect. It played possum for 61 minutes. How does this even help? Well, let's say you're in a garden where you see a bunch of identical bushes with soft fruit. You go to the first bush and start collecting and eating fruits. Yummy! It's so simple! And you're doing it relatively fast. But as you strip that bush, it's getting harder for you to find more fruits. Plus, it's kind of irritating because it takes way more time now than at the beginning. So now you need to decide whether to stay there and try to find more, or simply switch to another bush to have it all easy and fast once again. Assuming you are the predator, and predators are greedy, you'll just look for ways to eat as much fruit as possible in the shortest period of time. This means you'll go on and start collecting fruits from another bush, and the next one, and so on. Researchers use the same logic when it comes to bird and antlion larvae. It appears that insects waste the predator's time when playing possum, which has a significant impact on how things go later. That way, they encourage the predator to look for food elsewhere, because the predator doesn't have that much time to waste. So, pretending to be not alive is actually a good way to stay alive. Depending on the species, young birds spend from 10 to 30 days in their eggs. There's no air inside, but Mother Nature created a perfect mechanism for them to still be able to breathe. As a young chick is developing inside the egg, it grows some kind of hollow sac-like structure from the gut. It's like a tiny pouch that fuses with a second membrane that goes around the chick and its yolk. So, one end is attached to the chick while the other is close to the inner surface of the eggshell. That way, this special membrane acts like lung tissue and connects the outside world with the chick's circulatory system. Most animals have 2 eyes, but some species need more. For example, some reptiles, amphibians, and fish have a 3rd eye on top of the head. It's not something that improves their vision that much, but it simply helps them navigate via the sunlight and regulate their body temperature. Many invertebrates have more than 2 eyes. Most spiders have 8 of them, because that way they can spot their prey easier. Lions, dogs, cats, all these mammals sleep in pretty comfortable positions. But not whales. They look like giant floating loaves of bread, which is a scene one diver accidentally came across in the Caribbean Sea. 6 whales were just standing upright with their tails pointed down at a depth of about 65 feet below the surface. Scientists discovered that when sperm whales take a nap, they stay in this position for 10 to 15 minutes. They don't move or breathe. But these creatures spend only 7% of their time asleep, far less than other mammals. Usually, they either rest peacefully in the water or relax, slowly swimming next to other marine animals. When they're moving and sleeping at the same time, they're actually taking a nap. These animals can't go too deep and need to stay close to the surface. Great white sharks sleep and hunt at greater depths, which means one less thing to worry about when taking a quick nap. Plus, it gets pretty cold the deeper you go, and whales need warmer environments that can help them maintain the temperature of their large bodies. When alone, dolphins enter a stage of deep sleep. It usually happens at night and lasts for only a few hours at a time. While sleeping, the animal floats at the surface. It shuts down half of its brain, I can relate, together with the opposite eye. The other half is at a low alert level, awake and ready to react if some unwanted visitor comes closer. The part of the brain that is awake also sends signals when it's time to go up to the surface to take a breath of fresh air. Marine mammals have the blowhole. That's a flap of skin they can open and close whenever they want. People breathe automatically. Your body knows what it needs to do even when you're sleeping. But whales and dolphins have a voluntary breathing system. It means they need to consciously go to the surface to get some air. And one part of their brain needs to always be awake to inform the animal it's time to go up. Whales and dolphins can hold their breath way longer than other species. They also have a higher tolerance for carbon dioxide and can take in more air. Their red blood cells store more oxygen too. Whales and dolphins' blood goes only to those body parts that really need oxygen. If a whale only uses its brain, heart, fins, and some other muscles needed for swimming at the moment, those will also be the only body parts that will get the oxygen. Digestion or other functions can wait. The ocean is not a place where you can relax and peacefully fall asleep. While sleeping, fish reduce their activity. Their metabolism becomes slow. Some of them keep floating in the same spot. Others find a safer place among corals or in the mud. Early in life, dolphins learn to make a unique whistle that helps others from their pod to identify them. That means these specific whistles are their names, and dolphins do respond to them. Clams have feet. It looks like a large tongue that sometimes protrudes from the shell, but that's actually the foot, and it's relatively long compared to the length of the animal. Clams use this limb to dig themselves in the sand. The blue whale is the largest living animal, and it's also larger than the majority of dinosaurs used to be. They can grow to more than 100 feet long and have a weight of almost 200 tons. That's like 50 adult elephants. A blue whale's tongue alone can weigh more than one elephant. Such a giant surely needs to eat a lot, 500,000 calories in just one mouthful. The blue whale's heart is the size of a small car and weighs 1,300 pounds. To move the blood through such a giant body, the heartbeats are so strong you can hear them even from 2 miles away. The heart of a whale beats only 8 to 10 times per minute. The whale is one of the loudest creatures out there. Its call can go up to 180 decibels, which is as loud as a jet plane. Almost 95% of jellyfish's body is made of water. For comparison, the human body is 60% water. It's probably not a surprise since jellyfish don't have a heart, blood, eyes, or brain. The other 5% of their body weight is proteins, muscles, and nerve cells. Jellyfish have been around for more than 500 million years. This makes them older than dinosaurs. These creatures haven't changed much, and today's jellyfish are pretty much like their ancestors. These creatures live in the ocean, but in 1991, more than 2,000 jellyfish polyps were taken into space. Scientists wanted to see how they would react in the environment with no gravity. The jellyfish reproduced and created 60,000 new polyps, but unfortunately, those couldn't function normally after getting back to Earth. One species of jellyfish can literally live forever. As it grows older, the critter goes down to the seafloor to become a polyp again, and that polyp turns into a new jellyfish with the same genetics. Greenland sharks can live 500 years. This is an animal with almost the longest lifespan among vertebrates. Sperm whales are sociable creatures. They spend their life surrounded by their family. These animals support one another and have close friends they remember well, even if they don't see each other for a long time. Electric eels have small eyes that are not so effective in environments with no light, so they mostly rely on their electric organs. Those consist of 6,000 cells. Eels use them to stow power, similar to batteries. These creatures use electricity like bats use their radars or dolphins their sonar. An eel can also produce enough electricity to power a panel of light bulbs. There's a small tropical archer fish that can learn to recognize human faces. This fish has an interesting ability to spit small jets of water from its mouth. Researchers showed the fish the image of 2 different faces placed side by side. One was unknown and the other was familiar. The fish was supposed to spit water at the familiar one. The creature took the right guess more than 80% of the time. Every year in the winter, great white sharks that live along the California coastline disappear. It feels as if they take a vacation for 30 to 40 days. The animals go to a point halfway between Hawaii and Mexico. They might do it to get some food, relax, or hang out with their buddies from other areas. The spot is now called the Whale Shark Cafe. Some types of sharks, like makos, whale sharks, or white sharks, breathe in a very specific way. It requires them to swim all the time. They also need to move quickly and with their mouth open. This way, the oxygen can enter and reach their gills. Sea sponges are some of the most primitive animals. They're immobile, don't have a mouth, eyes, bones, brain, heart, lungs, or any other organ whatsoever. And still, they're alive. There's such a thing as a sea unicorn. That's an animal called the narwhal. Its horn is actually a tooth that can grow up to 10 feet long. Manatees, also known as sea cows, are distant relatives of elephants. Their weight can go up to 1,000 pounds. These creatures are vegetarian and need to eat around 10% of their total weight on a daily basis. That's lots of sea salad. In some cases, manatees share space with alligators, but they get along pretty well. You can even find a photo from Florida where an alligator rides a manatee's back. Frogfish have special fins that help these creatures walk along the sand. They're very useful in shallow waters. A ghost pipefish is hard to see, but once you spot it, you're bound to get really surprised. Its head makes up over 40% of its body. Crabs don't feel like wasting time on such formalities as putting foods in their mouth. That's why they taste it with their feet, which is where their taste buds are. Marine iguanas are the only lizards on our planet that like spending time in the ocean, even though they mainly live on land. They're herbivores that feed in shallow waters and swim like snakes. Iguanas use their long claws to hold on to the bottom when they need to graze. Green turtles can cross over 1,400 miles when migrating. They try to find the perfect spot to lay their eggs. Penguins sort of fly when they're underwater, reaching a speed of 25 miles per hour. More than 5 million years ago, I've heard, I wasn't around then, deep-sea worms and humans had a common ancestor. So we still share 70% of our genes with these creatures, and with sea stars, squid, and octopuses. The ocean covers over 70% of our planet, and over 80% of it is unexplored. More than 1 million species live there. But there are not only animals, 3 million shipwrecks are lying all over the ocean floor, hiding mysterious stories. Many of them are yet to be discovered. Now, one of the most common animal myths is that mice love cheese. It popped out a long time ago, probably as early as when people started storing food. Since mice are regular visitors to human homes, they were constantly looking for food they could eat. People used to store grains in glass jars. They also kept their meat hanging up high. But they'd lay the cheese on the shelf, which was an easy target for all the unwelcome pantry visitors like mice. So they ate it because they couldn't reach anything better. But a mouse will definitely more likely go after chocolate or some other sweet thing than the cheese. Who can blame them? Now, flamingos don't really stand in the water on one leg so they wouldn't get cold. This is just a simple way for them to spare the effort. It's exhausting for us humans to stand on one leg, but for them, this is the most stable position possible considering their peculiar anatomy. This pose doesn't require any muscular work. Now I'm jealous. One of the most widespread and oldest myths out there is that ostriches hide their heads in the ground every time they're scared. A long time ago, researchers thought ostriches weren't very smart because they bury their heads in the ground without being aware the rest of their large bodies are still out there, where everyone can see them. In fact, ostriches do it when they want to swallow sand and pebbles to boost their digestion or just turn over the eggs they lay in their nests. And even then, they technically don't bury their head, but put it near the ground. Otherwise, with its head in the sand, the poor thing wouldn't be able to breathe. No reason to think of an ostrich as a frightened bird. Like some other animals, it will flee if it senses there's a danger coming. And in some situations, it'll fight back and defend itself. And that's one angry bird. What do you think is the largest thing a blue whale can swallow? Well, we're talking about the biggest animal ever known to have lived on our planet. It can grow up to 100 feet long with a weight of 200 tons. Its heart is as big as a car, and its tongue can weigh as much as an average elephant. It's easy to imagine a blue whale swallowing cars, people, and even small ships, perhaps. But it's all wrong. The largest thing it can actually swallow is a grapefruit. Its throat can take the size of a small salad plate. Whales feed on small fish, plankton, and marine crustaceans, so they don't need a bigger throat. But we wouldn't be able to survive the juices inside a blue whale's stomach anyway. It would finish us within 15 seconds, similar to how long we'd last in space without a spacesuit. So don't try this. Camels don't store water in their humps. We're talking about animals with extraordinary resistance to some pretty extreme conditions. They can survive even when drinking water only every 8 to 10 days, but not because they have a secret stash on their back. It's because, when they have a chance to drink, they will swallow 50 gallons of water at one sitting. They mostly use it to replenish 30% of their total body weight, an amount they can lose by dehydration. So, they lose a lot of water but quickly regain it. Their humps are where they deposit fat, but it's not for producing water. The oxygen camels would need to inhale would cause them to lose too much water because it would evaporate through their lungs. That's why they use fat as a nutritional source for energy. This helps them survive in arid regions and times of scarcity. Now, it's a myth that anteaters vacuum ants using their noses. They don't go around looking for ants and hoovering them through their long snouts. Anteaters have very long tongues. Giant anteaters have tongues that go up to 2 feet long. It's the shape of a strand of spaghetti and covered in spiny hooks and sticky saliva that traps ants, up to 160 times in a minute, which means they eat up to 20,000 insects in a single day. That's a lot of bugs. They open anthills using their claws and then do the rest of the work with the tongue. They don't have teeth, so they only swallow all the insects they catch. Movies might have given you a false sense of security when it comes to dinos. Nope, standing very, very still couldn't save you from a raging T-Rex coming after you. It's a myth the Dino King had bad vision. These beasts may have seen better than modern-day raptors. They had excellent depth perception, something present in today's animals such as eagles and hawks. Even if, by some miracle, the Dino King can't see you or thinks you're just a small tree or some other object because you're standing so still, they had a pretty good sense of smell. So, the better option would be to run because the T-Rex is not as fast as scientists used to think, up to 33 miles per hour. Considering their anatomy, they could move at a speed of 12 miles per hour. Anything faster than that would have caused serious bone damage. But this didn't stop them from ruling the animal world because there were plenty of dinosaurs way slower than them, so they didn't have to worry about food. Another misconception states that owls can spin their heads, neither more nor less than 360 degrees. Their head spinning does have its limit, 270 degrees in one direction. Since they can turn 270 degrees to the left and right, owls have a 540-degree range of motion. Don't worry, if you touch a butterfly's wings, the animal won't lose its ability to fly. It will survive, despite the common myth that says the opposite. Butterfly wings have scales. When you touch them, some scales might shed off, but it's not a bad thing, because they shed off naturally too. Because of sheddable scales, they can escape more easily if they get stuck and trapped in spider webs. Now, the next myth has inspired many movies, books, and TV series scenarios, but no, wolves don't howl at the moon. They typically howl at night, true, but because that's the period of time when they're most active. They'll also look up while howling since this helps the sound travel. That way, other wolves will hear them from around 6 to 7 miles away. And that's why they howl in the first place, to communicate with each other. They make specific sounds for a certain situation. For example, to help a wolf that lost its pack find its way home. The moon just happened to accidentally be there while wolves were communicating. Okay, giraffes only need 30 minutes of sleep a day. That's another myth. They sleep about 4.5 hours daily. It's not that unusual for animal species that are most active during daylight. Studies also show giraffes usually lay down to sleep for less than 11 minutes at a time. Many people believe moles are blind. These small burrowing mammals actually can see. It's just their vision is really poor and only adapted to recognize light. They're also colorblind. When they're searching for food and navigating the dark underground, these creatures mostly rely on their touch and sense of smell. Now, their sense of touch is sharp, which is why moles can feel nearby vibrations of activity. This helps them avoid danger or find their next meal more easily, like millipedes, worms, centipedes, and other invertebrates. Yum! They're really fast at digging and can dig a couple of inches per minute. In the winter, animals hibernate, not because it's too cold for them to be outside, but because there isn't enough food during that period. When an animal is in hibernation, its heart rate, body temperature, breathing, and other metabolic activities slow down significantly. That's how they conserve energy. Chipmunks, bats, turtles, snakes, they all hibernate during the winter, which saves them energy for other seasons when they get more active and are capable of getting more food. I'd say bears too, but they're not the true hibernators. If you try waking one up during the winter when you believe the animal is sleeping, you might end up having a bad time. Now, they do slow down, which means they sleep for extended periods of time. They're still not asleep for the entire winter season, and you can easily wake them during their sleep, so let's not. Now, don't believe myths. Earwigs won't lay eggs in your ears. Yup, despite their name, they're not that interested in your ears. Well, at least there's no evidence they'd want to go there. They prefer to spend their time in dark, moist places, such as under tree bark or in soil. So, your ears are off the hook.
The liger is probably the most popular hybrid animal and an incredibly large cat. You won't see them in the wild. People most deliberately breed them. Lions and tigers don't even inhabit the same areas. So, a liger is a mix of a male lion and a female tiger. and they can grow to be very big in a pretty short period of time. They're actually the biggest cats in the world. Hercules, the largest recorded liger, is a real example of that. 922 pounds and 10.8 feet long. Imagine taking him for a walk. Ligers are mostly way bigger than either of their parents. In most cases, they behave and look more like lions than tigers. But they have some tiger traits too. For example, striped backs, and they're crazy about swimming. The taigen. Nobody could fault you for thinking the taigen and liger are basically the same animal. I mean, they're both a combination of tigers and lions. But a taigen comes from a crossbreeding of a male tiger and a female lion. They're usually smaller than their parents, and definitely much smaller than their giant, could you call them siblings? In most cases, they inherit charming looks from their tiger fathers, but they get some interesting traits from their mother's side too. For example, love for socialization and the ability to roar. Hands down, one of the rarest hybrid animals in the world are wolfins. These fellas are a mashup of a female bottlenose dolphin and a male false killer whale. Its name might make you think differently, but a false killer whale belongs to the dolphin family. They're not even related to killer whales. Wolfins are such an interesting 50-50 mix and balance of their parents. They have dark gray skin, the perfect blend of a black false killer whale and light gray dolphin skin. Dolphins have anywhere between 80 and 100 teeth. False killer whales have 44, and their hybrid young is halfway, with 66 teeth in total. What would it look like if algae and a slug paired? No need to imagine. You have a green sea slug to check the result. It lives in salt marshes in Canada and New England, and it's possibly the weirdest hybrid creature you'll see in this video, and in general. Part plant, part animal. So, some slugs seem to have been very sneaky while stealing the genes from innocent algae that they have eaten to enable them to look like this. Since they're partially a plant, they can produce the plant pigment called chlorophyll. That means these unusual slugs can even photosynthesize. That's the process plants use to turn sunlight into energy. So they produce their own molecules that contain energy without having to eat anything at all. When scientists first discovered it, a green sea slug was the first case of a multicellular animal that's able to produce chlorophyll. What do you get when you mix a male leopard and a female lion? You get an interesting hybrid called a lepin. These animals grow to be almost as big as lions, but they still have shorter legs, similar to their father leopard. They inherit some of his other traits too, like a love for climbing and swimming. You can have a union with a male lion and a female leopard too, and the result is called a leopard. Male lions are usually around 10 feet long and weigh about 500 pounds. The female leopard is way smaller, only 5 feet long, with a weight of about 80 pounds. The difference in size here is too big, so this pairing really doesn't happen that often. Okay, how about a buffalo and a cow? When you were little, maybe you thought that they could be a good match, but in reality, the combination creates an unusual hybrid animal called a beefalo. Not many types of hybrid animals can reproduce on their own, but a beefalo can do it. When a grizzly and a polar bear get together, it results in a growler bear, or grizzly bear, or grizzlar, whichever you like the most. You can see them even in the wild. These two types of bears have a mutual contempt for one another. Yep, they're not good at living together in a mutual habitat. But even though it's rare, the love can still happen and result in these cute caramel-colored hybrid growler bears. In most cases, they'll be a bit smaller than polar bears, on average 60 inches tall at the shoulder, and approximate weight 1,000 pounds. But they're well equipped for surviving in warmer climates, thanks to the genes they got from their grizzly family side. Now let's get to one pretty tough fella, the jag lion. As its name implies, it's the hybrid of a jaguar and a lion. We don't know much about these intriguing big cats because only a few of them exist. But there was an unintentional mixing between a black jaguar and a lioness, which eventually resulted in 2 jag lion cubs. One had a dark gray coat with black spots because of the dominant melanin gene black jaguars usually have. The other one had a lion color and the rosette pattern spots that remind you of a jaguar. Yep, you already know it. There are also jaguars, a hybrid of a female jaguar and a male lion. That's some colorful family. Speaking of wild cats, have you ever heard of a savanna cat? Savanna cats are in both categories of house pets and exotic hybrids, since they're a mix of a domestic cat and a wild African serval hybrid animal. We're talking about striking animals, almost as big as a domestic cat. But what gives them their exotic look are their tall bodies, slender forms, and spotted coats. These cats are extremely loyal, intelligent, and loving creatures. Here's one unexpected mixture: a zebroid. Technically, it's a name people use to describe a hybrid of a zebra and any equine species. But when you pair a zebra and a horse, their young is called a zorse. Zebra hybrids mostly look like whichever animals they've been crossbred with, but with the striped coat of a pure zebra. Most of these hybrid creatures don't even have fully striped coats. You can mostly see the stripes on non-white areas of their bodies and legs. Speaking of zebra hybrids, check out this adorable creature. It's called a zonkey, or zedonk, zebras, zenki. Take your pick. They're mostly either tan, gray, or brown in color. You'll distinguish them by unique stripes that are darkest on their legs and belly. Unlike some hybrids, such as the liger, zonkies can normally live in the wild. In fact, that's where you can find them, living life to the fullest across savannas and open woodland, mostly in Africa. Can you guess what a geep is? Yep, a combination of goat and sheep, and definitely one of the most adorable and cuddliest hybrid creatures in this video. Geeps are very rare. Some experts even believe it's possible that they're not true hybrids, but just sheep with certain genetic abnormalities. After all, sheep and goats do carry different numbers of chromosomes, which means cross-species mixes are almost impossible. When a camel and a llama get together, you get a cute little thing called a kama. Similar to beefalo, the kama also produces the best economic traits of both its parents. The first one was born in 1998. Kamas don't have camel humps. Their body is covered in soft, fleecy fur, similar to their llama side of the family. They can drink big amounts of water at a time, so they can survive with almost no water at all for pretty long periods. The coy wolf is a hybrid where nothing looks that unusual to most people, since the coyote and the wolf are not that drastically different in their looks. After all, these two species only diverged around 200,000 years ago. Now they're still able to mate and bring coy wolf cubs to the world. People living in eastern Canada and the US might be familiar with these smart, adaptable animals that inhabit their forests, neighborhood parks, or sometimes even cities. These hybrids have emerged over the past century or so, and they've picked up the characteristics of both their parents. When a coy wolf is fully grown, it's somewhere in between the size of both parents, but it's also 55 pounds heavier than pure coyotes and has a bigger jaw, longer legs, smaller ears, and a bushier tail. Check out the narluga, an extremely rare creature whose parents are a narwhal and a beluga whale. It's a pretty strange animal, but far from being lonely, they mostly live in the North Atlantic. Scientists had suspected their existence for decades. In 1990, they found an unusual-looking whale skull located in an Inuit hunter's tool shed in Greenland. People from that area said that there were other similar-looking animals, and they fit the description of neither a beluga whale nor a narwhal. People said they had gray skin, narwhal-like tails, and beluga-like flippers. Narwhals and beluga whales are similar in size, and they share a family, the Monodontidae family. So it may not even be that surprising that they're able to successfully breed in the wild. Lions, elephants, and bears, oh my! 3 of the most beautiful yet intimidating members of the animal kingdom. But what intimidates these creatures, if anything? You might be surprised. Let's take a look. How about we start with the universally recognized king of the jungle, the lion. We'll get to the elephants in a moment, but there's actually one in the room. You know, the one that claims that a certain jungle cat is afraid of the most vital substance known to man? A small hint, it covers 70% of Earth's surface. So, is it true? Is the ferocious lion afraid of water? It's actually a myth. Lions enjoy taking a dip in the water because it allows them to cool off. This makes sense if you think about the climates the creatures have to face. Temperatures in a savanna climate range from 68 to 86 degrees Fahrenheit. You know all of us humans hit the beach whenever the weather is like that. So why should we expect anything different from the lion? Especially given that the creatures typically carry around between 280 and 420 pounds of weight, as well as a thick coat of fur. The ironic thing about this whole lions are afraid of water myth is that they're actually fantastic swimmers. The same goes for all of your other favorite large cats from these warm weather climates, such as tigers, leopards, jaguars, and ocelots. It's actually large cats from cold climates that do their best to avoid water. This applies to such felines as bobcats, lynxes, and snow leopards. The latter lives in places like the cold alpine tundra biome. That's a rocky mountainous area. Temperatures there, on average, get as low as 33 degrees Fahrenheit. Again, it makes perfect sense that these big, cold weather cats despise water. Getting their fur coats wet would dampen their chances of staying warm. Pun intended. I don't think you have to look too far to piece together where this lions are afraid of water myth comes from. In fact, there's a good chance for some of you watching this video that the reason is near your computer screen right now, jumping around and causing mischief. That's right, we may have jumped ourselves to a conclusion that certain behavioral aspects of our own pet cats would match that of a lion. House cats, though related to all the previously mentioned big cats, are not actually directly descended from them. They instead have developed over millions of years from a single wild ancestor that still exists in the wild today, the Near Eastern wildcat. As water is not plentiful in the Middle East, these cats were not exposed to it to any great degree. Like their descendants, they only appreciate it as a food source. As you likely see with your pet, they hardly bathe, swim, or interact with water in general. Lucky for them, they don't even need to. These domestic felines use their tongues to clean themselves. They can do this because their tongues have tiny hook-shaped papillae. They assist cats in grooming out knots and keeping the coat clean, sweet-smelling, and in overall immaculate shape. Cats, in general, are individualistic creatures. And you may be screaming at your screen right now proclaiming that your cat, in fact, loves water. And this is definitely possible. Some cats even like to play with water. For example, drips from the tap or bubbles in the bath. There are specific breeds of house cats that are known to enjoy the aqua life more than others. The Turkish Van, for example, which is also appropriately known as the swimming cat. It's believed that the breed developed an affinity for water by swimming in Lake Van to cool down. This lake is in the area the animals evolved from. Moving on to a problem a cat definitely doesn't have to deal with. Have you ever heard of musophobia, also known as suriphobia? Both words are valid names for a fear of mice and rats. There is a common belief that one particular animal that has this fear is the beautiful elephant. That's right, the same animal that, depending on the species, stands at the height of roughly 10 feet and weighs about 9,000 pounds. It's supposedly afraid of a creature that is a mere 4 inches in length and weighs less than 1 pound. But why did this belief appear? Well, the reasoning for this rumor is based on the possibility that elephants are paranoid about mice climbing inside their trunks. If a mouse succeeded in doing this, there would be a potential that it could cause irritation and blockage within the trunk. Now, I'm not trying to be the guy who spoils parties, but it looks like this belief is also a myth. Researchers claim that there's no concrete evidence that suggests elephants are afraid of mice. The most they'll concede is that the giant animal may sometimes take fright by the sudden appearance of the tiny rodent, which is the exact same for ourselves. Experts also claim that even if a mouse did get inside an elephant's trunk, the latter could effortlessly blow it back out with a puff of air. There's also some evidence that, in most cases, the animal remains unbothered by rodents and even allows mice to climb on their heads and trunks. Researchers are sure that as long as an elephant is healthy, there's no other animal that it fears simply because of its size. So, lions aren't afraid of water, elephants don't seem to be afraid of mice, then are any of these animal fear rumors real? We're probably going to be left just as disappointed by asking if a bear has any legit fear, right? Well, ladies and gentlemen, please give a round of applause for none other than people's best friend. That's right, bears do feel quite uncomfortable whenever they are around dogs. And all this despite a very distant genetic link to them. When the two creatures encounter each other, the dog has the ability to chase, intimidate, corner, or antagonize the bear. As for the powerful animal, it will instead try to avoid any run-ins with the dog. There's even a type of Finnish dog breed known as the Karelian bear dog. This dog species is specifically used for standing up to large animals, such as bears. This dog has a great sense of direction, body flexibility and control, courage, sense of smell, and persistence. So, does this mean you can walk with your dog through an area known to have bears and feel absolutely calm and confident because of the presence of your loyal companion? Not really. Despite the fact that bears may be nervous around dogs, we can't forget their size and power. The American black bear can reach a height of nearly 7 feet and weigh up to 660 pounds. If a mother bear has nowhere to run or feels that her cubs might be in danger, it's extremely possible that she will lash out, which can only mean big trouble for you or your dog. So, nobody should ever test this theory. Instead, if you're ever planning to visit an unknown area with your dog, you should first plan ahead and familiarize yourself with the wildlife you may encounter there. Because you never know what a bear will do when it notices you and your pooch, especially given their mild case of cynophobia, which is the name given to a fear of dogs. At least we were able to find one genuine fear of another animal out of these 3 tough members of the animal kingdom. Weird that a dog, something that gives so many of us such joy and comfort in our own homes, is still the creature that's brave enough to take on a bear if need be. Well, not all heroes wear capes. Some just wear fur and a dog collar. Why don't we take a look at what frightens these great companions of ours? Ever wondered why your own dog becomes uncomfortable when it hears loud noises? The degree of fear differs in each dog, but it's the simple unpredictability of thunder and flashing lightning, or loud bangs that accompany firework displays that causes your dog uneasiness. The inability to understand what's causing this deafening noise may cause your dog to tremble, tuck its tail between its legs, or even run away from home. Another thing that can really frighten our loyal pets is when we leave them all alone by themselves. This can, unfortunately, lead to being a nightmare for your next-door neighbors, because a common symptom of this fear is excessive barking. This fear may also cause problems closer to home. Ever asked yourself why your dog chewed up your sofa? Housebreaking accidents are typical when a dog has separation anxiety. You can't stay mad at your dog for long though, right? Your pooch will make it up to you when you guys run into a bear.
That's it for today. So hey, if you pacified your curiosity, then give the video a like and share it with your friends. Or if you want more, just click on these videos.